Hi, Fashion Dolls. It is Motivation Monday, December 26th, the day after Christmas. I hope you guys had a great holiday break. These are our last two shows wrapping up the year of 2022 this week. Tomorrow we have actor and model Adam. He will be joining us tomorrow. But today we have an actor by the name of Terry King. He's joining us today. So I'm super excited to have him here. I hope you guys had an amazing Christmas holiday break, such as I did. It was great being able to spend time with my family and see my family throughout the week. It was amazing. And I hope you guys enjoyed your Christmas holiday as well too. So you're only getting two shows this week, and season 17, you guys. Season 17 will begin January 2nd. So make sure you guys set your reminders. The lineup will go out sometime this week. So make sure you guys stay tuned for that. Hi, Timothy. Hi, everyone. So without further ado, let's welcome our incredible, talented special guest, Mr. Terry King, ladies and gentlemen. I'm super excited to have him here. Make sure you guys share this live. And I hope you guys have been checking out the replays of Style by Stevie because we are almost at our 400 mark. And I hope you guys have been checking it out because we are super excited. We are about to hit that mark and we are now going into the 17th season. January 2nd at 4 p.m. we will begin the new season of Style by Stevie. So that means this whole backdrop is going to change, new fashions, new everything. So make sure you guys stay tuned for that. And make sure you guys are following me here on Instagram as well too. And I did the Bath and Body Works SAS today. I had such a great time. It was me, my mom, my aunt, and my grandmother. We went and we enjoyed it. It was such a good time. But the store was crowded. Like everybody was getting those deals. So make sure you guys go and check out the Bath and Body Works semi-annual sale if you are not. The prices are amazing. $3.95 for body care. Some of the body care is like $4.12. And then the candles are $10.95. So make sure you guys go and check that out. It is amazing. So I'm going to send this to Terry again because I just spoke with him a few minutes ago. I'm sharing the live with him, trying to get him to come in. But I hope you guys enjoyed your Christmas holidays. Thank you, Timothy. Thank you so much. Let me see if he's here. Nope, not yet. He's going to be joining us. I'm waiting on him to join in so that I can add him in. Definitely Fashion Dolls. We're going to have a great show today. And tomorrow we have actor and model Adam. He's going to be joining us. So make sure you guys tune in for that. We're going to have some fun wrapping up, closing out 2022. It's been an amazing year. And I must say thus far it's been an emotional roller coaster with the ups and the downs of so much that has been happening throughout the year of 2022. So many losses. But I hope you guys have been keeping grounded and more importantly, taking care of yourself and your mental health. Mental health is very important to me as well also. So, without further ado, let me see where he's at so that I can add him in, ladies and gentlemen. There he is. So, without further ado, let's welcome our incredible, amazingly talented special guest, Mr. Terry King.
Hello.
Hello. Welcome. How are you?
I'm good. How are
I am
you?
wonderful. It's such a pleasure to have you here.
Oh, it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you so much.
So, before we get started into this interview, because you're one of the last interviews closing out 2022 going into the new year, if you could sum up
Yeah.
2022 in one word, what would that word be?
Ooh. Uh, Fantastic. I would just say fantastic and maybe a little bit insane.
I kind of said that.
Just because, yeah, just because it was one of those years where, when everything shut down, everything slowed down for a bit. And I was like, oh man, like, what do I do through all of this? And then all of a sudden, throughout this entire year, it's just been stuff where it's like back to back. And at some point, I was like, I had like an eye twitch going. I was like, oh my gosh, this is so much. But then at some point, I had to like sit down and be like, but this is really good. This is what I was hoping for. So it was one of those things where it was like, it was insane, but fantastic.
Yes, we were living in times of uncertainty, and I agree with you on the shutdowns
Yeah.
because so many shutdowns have happened. If you're an actor that is in the New York area, you're pretty sure and familiar with Broadway, actors that have done
Yeah.
vaudeville and things. The shutdowns have affected a lot of actors. So I'm glad you brought this
Oh
up.
yeah. Yeah.
So before we get into this interview, before we dive deeper into some of your acting career, because you've done so much throughout your career, tell us a little bit about Terry and how the world got introduced to Terry. Like where you grew up and how many brothers, how many sisters.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's see. I was born in I say Atlanta, Georgia, just because like when I say Snellville, nobody knows where that is. Like it literally sounds like that middle of nowhere town. But like my family was out there. I have two brothers. And when I was like 6 months old, we moved to Tennessee, where I spent a good portion of my life. That was Tennessee was the place where I was like, this is home when I think of like back in my past or anything like that, because it's the first place I remember. Then we moved to North Carolina, which was also a beautiful place. And eventually we got brought up here to Wisconsin. And then eventually I moved to Illinois. So, so yeah. I mean that is basically the gist of where things started out for me.
And you've got some of your colleagues and supporters in the comments. Illinois Reese says, "Hey Terry, what's happening, bro?"
Oh, what's up, Maurice? Yeah, he is an awesome filmmaker. Maurice is a great guy and a great storyteller.
Now, before we dive to your acting career, could you see yourself doing that in the future? Because 2023 is slowly approaching around the corner. Do you see yourself stepping behind the lens as well too, getting into filmmaking, producing as well?
Yeah, actually, there's a number of things that I started doing as smaller projects. It just sort of started out doing these 48-hour film projects with a group called Pizza Sutra that I've done a lot of work with. And it started out with like little things, but at some point, one of the other guys and I had this really good chemistry, and we were like, we should
Yeah.
do something with this. Um, and growing up, even though like acting is what I aspired to and things like that, I always wanted to tell stories of some sort. So once we said that, I was like, all right, why don't we do something like post-apocalyptic? And we started building from that. And it was like, I still want it to be funny because I want it to be like a fun adventure sort of thing. So I ended up writing out this short film basically that was a post-apocalyptic buddy comedy. And we're going to do a series of videos for that. So in that, I got the pleasure of writing it and creating it with the other guy. Um, and then from that point, I kind of half directed it. The Sergio, the guy who I consider the director, he says I co-directed it, but I was like, I see you as the director. So maybe at some point, but I have sort of started doing little things here and there to get it started.
Okay, okay. And someone added it in the comments. Definitely. Thank you, Beefy Gordon. Welcome for just joining in.
Hi,
Now,
Beth. That's
all
my
right.
partner.
So let's go through some of your acting credits because you have so many under your belt. One like it's your last, Upstaged, The Rocket, Life of
Yeah,
the Party, The Sob, The Game of
yeah.
Truth, If We Love, September Rain, State of Purgatory, Dead Air, and President. So out of all of, because I could go on and on, out of all of your acting credits, which role has to be one of your favorite and near and dear to your heart?
Ooh, that's actually a tough one because I've had this blessing of working with a lot of truly extraordinary filmmakers and storytellers, and each one really has its own great reason of why it was great. But I'd say the one that was always near and dear to my heart would probably be Presidium, uh, just because that was the first one that kind of started it all, that kind of got me into like believing I could do
Yeah.
this. Um, and it was like I always kind of tie that in with the rocket because technically Presidium I did first, but the rocket was the first thing where I went to the filmmakers and I was like, is this something I'd like to take part in this? And like I'd come up with like a little resume and stuff. I was like, if you have a part, and they actually ended up giving me a dual part, um, which was super cool. But Presidium was like my first taste of getting to do film and seeing how exciting it could be. And it was something to where like I didn't expect to get it because it was so early on, and it was one of those projects where I was like, this is exactly what I'd want. And then I got it. So it was like from that moment, it was from there I had this whole different mindset of how I approach film and how I
Yeah.
approach going for parts. So I'd say that's probably
All
the
right.
one.
So right there, starting from the beginning. Now, going
Yeah.
speaking of acting roles, going into 2023, are there any possible actors that you would like to work with in the future or producers? And if so, which ones come to mind?
Oh man, there are so many. I mean, there are obviously like dream ones where it's like if I ever got the chance to work with Harrison
Ooh,
Ford, I would lose my mind. But I'd also probably be fired because the whole day I'd probably be like, "So, Mr. Ford, tell me about yourself." Um, but at the same time, I'd say the one that I'd want to work with the most, just because my brothers and I have always been really close growing up. My middle brother is also an actor, and we've always wanted to work on something together. We've just never had the opportunity. So I would say that because I think that would be the most fun. And having us both have this dream that we aspired to and getting to have a moment where we get to do it together would just be
so
amazing.
keeping it in the family. At what age did you discover the acting bug? Did you say, okay, this is something that I want to do?
That was probably when I was very little. Like I think I was 3, maybe a couple of years older. My family, we had like one of those big VHS home video
Remember those?
camcorders, and we would do like all these sketches. And I would do like little silly characters and things like that. But as we got older, I started wanting to be the one who would like come up with the sketch and things like that. So it just sort of grew into what I always wanted because we had a very movie oriented family.
Okay. Okay, so it's like it ran in the family. This is something that you wanted to do, that you were passionate about, and you started off there. You have to start somewhere. That's advice
Yeah.
to all of the actors. Now, in the beginning of the interview, you mentioned something that is very pivotal because a lot of actors were uncertain. The shutdowns have affected a lot of actors. There was a lot of self auditioning and self tapes going on. What were your thoughts when it
Oh
first
yeah.
hit us? Because me and my mom had a discussion just the other day. We were talking about, wow, how fast the year went out. And my brother's girlfriend said the same thing as well too yesterday because we got together for Christmas. We talked before the interview, and that was one of the questions. She said, "God, the year went out so fast." I said, "Yes, it has, just that fast." So,
Really.
do you see the big difference with how things were then before this happened, and then now?
I do. It's a combination of seeing how filmmaking works now, but also how you audition for things. Because, when the shutdown happened, there were some projects that were still floating around, but it was like you still had to keep your distance. If you wanted to audition for it, you had to do it from home and then send it in. And it's like that alone, just how it affected auditions, it affected that moment of when you walk into a room, you could kind of get a read of how everybody was or how everybody felt. And you didn't have that anymore. And if you had somebody reading for you or reading the opposite lines, you kind of lose that personal connection of them being in front of you because they're over the phone. Um, but then on top of that, I saw a lot of filmmakers go to smaller and smaller crews because they discovered like not only can we make this work, but there's also less risk and there's a lot more control. And so it was very interesting to see things shift from the beginning aspect all the way to the ending aspect of it.
Absolutely. And it's sort of, my mom said this also as well too. It sort of put a pause on everything. And now we see the world just
Yeah.
slowly but surely reopening back to somewhat normalcy. So Yes, it's back to
Oh
filmmaking,
yeah,
back to producing, whereas everything you had to do it on your own, self-production and all of that, self-taping. A lot of
yeah.
actors that I've interviewed said the same thing. It's completely different.
Oh yeah, yeah. It's really bizarre too because it's funny going into an audition room. I'm the type of person where the moment I have to
Mm.
audition, once they call my name, I start having a panic attack, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, am I gonna blow it? And it's like you'd think that once you have the just a camera and yourself, that it would cool that off, but all of a sudden you become your harshest critic, to where you're like, nope, that wasn't the take. I've got to do it again. Um, but yeah, it was bizarre. And just being so far away from everything, but also trying to make it work together, being so distant.
Yes, more importantly. And shout outs to Dante Fambro, who I've interviewed also. He says the same. Yeah, I asked Dante that question when we did our interview, just about normalcy and being an actor, having to self-tape, self-audition. A lot of actors said it's a little bit different for me. But going to the
Yeah,
audition room is what I'm normal to, what I'm used to. And it's kind of, this pandemic has kind of
yeah,
made people step out of the boundaries of their comfort zone going into the new year. Absolutely.
yeah, yeah, exactly. Which is crazy to think about because it's already the audition room is already a room where you're stepping outside of your comfort zone. So for somebody to be like, all right, you know how uncomfortable you were? We're
Right.
gonna need you to be just this much more uncomfortable about it. It's like, oh really? Okay. Oh.
Right. Oh my goodness. So what are some of the best advice you've been given into the world of acting? What are some of the best advice that someone is giving?
The best advice, I mean, I wasn't directly given this advice. It was something that Bryan Cranston had said. But the best advice that I had seen or heard was just remember when you are auditioning, you're not going in there to show them that you're the best actor in the world. You're not going in there to show them that you're the best person that they're ever going to see in the day. You're just going to show them that you have this perspective on the character they've asked you to audition for. And so you're only applying what you see in the character, and that that can only be the best that you can provide because you're working with your experience that you're sharing with the character and you're trying to bring it to life. But that take is going to be a million times different from the person after, the person before, and you can't really compare yourself to them. And you can't leave the room thinking, I've done a bad job because I didn't get the part or anything like that. It's just for whatever reason, the take that you had on whatever character they were bringing in, it just didn't work for the chemistry of the rest of the film. And so you could have given the best performance that they saw as just whatever your take was wasn't what they saw for the character.
Absolutely. And Dante agrees with you. And Monogamous Trail says, hey, Terry, one of the best actors and people I know, amazing to work with.
Oh, thank you. Who was that?
Monogamous Trail.
Oh, nice. What's up,
Yes,
Trail?
a lot of your people who you've worked with, your colleagues, they're all coming in. How does that feel to make you to have that support circle around you going into this business? Because that's also key and pivotal and important as well.
That I would say is probably the most wonderful part to me, because so many times when you work on a project, whether it's theater or film, you develop this camaraderie and you have this shared understanding of not only the project that you're working on, but how the film industry works and who you are as a person. And so you're always going into something to be very vulnerable with this group of people. So I've honestly just been really blessed with meeting a lot of great people along the way who are wonderful to work with and wonderful performances, who give wonderful performances, and in the end, allow me to feel safe giving these exposed emotions to the camera.
Vulnerability. And that was going to be
Yeah.
my next question for you. Like being an actor, tapping into a character, tapping into a certain character, you have to go into a certain mental space? How do you prepare for a role? What is your ritual for preparing for a role?
That's a great question. Um, for me, it starts with the moment I start reading the script. It's a thing that I started doing where I go through the script and I try and see what was the story the writer was trying to tell. And then from there, I start paying more attention to who my character is. And I start thinking, what is my character's arc throughout all of this? And how does my character's arc apply to the overall story? And then from there, once I start figuring out what this character's journey is supposed to be, I start trying to think, how would this person feel as they're going through this journey? They started out as this person here, and by the end, they have to be this person. So, like, what are the things that they said that allude to how this person might handle this? So for me, a lot of it's just in the script and what they say and how they respond. And sometimes it's something I try not to be afraid to say because it can be different from filmmaker to filmmaker. But sometimes I'll go to a director or a writer and be like, I get what's happening in this part of the script, but I feel like it doesn't make sense to who this character is prior to this. You know, and then I might build the character with the person that I'm speaking to from that point. But for me, it's all on the page and how you can relate to that and sort of bring that to life in a way where you associate that character's journey to yourself.
Absolutely. And I was just about to say, also, the character has to be relatable because the viewers can have some sort of, like the show Euphoria, Zendaya's character.
Yeah,
Some people can relate to her character so much through all of the things that she's been through in that part of her life and on the show, that aspect of her.
right.
So it has to be relatable to the viewers, where it's just like, wow, I've been through this. This is relatable to me. And then when you're willing to have those conversations, it's talkable and teachable moments. 100%.
Oh yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Like just even kind of add on to the thing I was talking about, the way it kind of came up for me, because it can be kind of scary to go up to somebody and be like, what was written, what everybody
Right.
prepared for, I disagree with it. Because I had a moment to where I was filming something. It was a zombie film. It's not out yet. It was a zombie film, and in it, they had rewritten this particular scene, and it was a character's death scene, and I'm supposed to give this monologue as they've passed away. And they had done another character's death scene a couple of days prior, and the way that the actors performed that scene was so passionately done that they rewrote the scene that I had. They rewrote my monologue. And so when I showed up that day, I had to go to the filmmaker because I had to say something along the lines of, I understand why you want to make these changes because this was a really good death scene, and the person who's dying right now was affected by that person's death scene. And so they are interconnected, but the way it was written out is doing it in a way to where I don't think my character would be addressing it solely like this, because they're going through the guilt of losing these two people, believing both deaths are their fault. And I, I actually asked him, I was like, I see what you'd like to do. If you're comfortable with me doing it, I would like to just improvise something combining what I loved from that original monologue and breathing in what you were writing in there to merge the two and see if we can get something a bit more cohesive
Yeah.
and realistic. Because as it is right now, I feel like this would pull not only myself out, but anybody who's watching it might feel pulled out when they see me suddenly rambling on about something else that was happening. And it was really nice because in that moment, the director very kindly like shouted to the producer who was like way across the room. He was like, hey Rob, Terry's gonna do his own take on this monologue. I'm gonna let him do it. And they were both just like, okay, because they told me later, up to that point, they had learned to trust my craft enough that they felt comfortable letting me try that. And it was funny because we went through the scene, the character died, and I do the scene, and, you know, nobody said anything. It was just dead silent after we finished, and we were just waiting. And one of my other scene partners, after a second, looked up and was like, is that a cut? How do we feel about that? And the producer was on a wall where we couldn't see him. He was on the opposite wall from us. And we suddenly quietly heard a, yeah, I thought that was really good. I think we're good here. And so it was like one of those things where getting to do that to bring a character to life and apply my feelings and emotions to it and have it affect the team who is creating it behind that was just really invigorating.
Okay. Okay. All
Yeah.
right, Fashion Dolls, it is time for our games here with Terry. The first one is called the Rapid Five. And Terry has to tell us five things he can't live without. It can be throughout your acting career, it can be your favorite drink, your favorite food, whatever it is. And then the next one, we're going to do something that's been a minute because we've been doing holiday games throughout the holidays. It's called Turn the Tables. And this is where my guests get to ask me questions, as many as they want to get to know the hostess here, Miss Stevie. So, all right. So we're going to do
All
rapid
right.
five first. What are five things that Terry can't live without?
Five things I can't live without. Firstly, my son. He's the most important thing in the world to me. Uh, Secondly, the rest of my
Okay.
family. Sorry. Third would probably be chocolate.
Okay.
I cannot go a day without chocolate. I don't know when it started to happen, but at some point that had to be something I had throughout the day. Then it would be films. Um, I love not only being able to be part of creating films, but also seeing like new and creative films out there. I'm definitely a movie buff. Uh, and then five, I would say would probably be Diet Coke.
Okay.
Yeah, it's almost a problem.
That, listen, my mom likes grape soda. She likes Fanta grape soda. So definitely,
Oh yeah,
definitely, yeah.
yes, yeah. Strawberry is my personal favorite of Fanta.
Okay. Okay. All right, Fashion Dolls. It is time to turn those tables. And that was Terry's rapid five. Those are the five things that he can't live without. All right. So this is where my guests get to ask me questions. And they get to ask as much as
Okay,
they want to get to know the hostess here. Sort of break the ice. So I'm gonna pass it on to Terry here. And Terry's gonna ask me some questions. Take it away.
okay. What is the thing that drew you to filmmaking or films and acting?
The the change aspect of it, turning into a different person, turning into a different character, because people are so used to seeing this, the happy, bubbly side of me. I'm a happy, bubbly person, go lucky person, and I love seeing change, being able to have range. Shout outs to my girl Ro Underwood. We were talking about that. She's an actress also. She said, being an actress, you have to have range. You have to be able to change and switch it up, and that's what I love about acting.
Yeah, excellent. Yeah, that and I definitely agree with that. And that is the interesting part is seeing all that change. Um, Another one, how did this start? How did the interview process start?
Wow, I came a long way. At first, it was going to be a beauty talk show. It was going to be all cosmetics and hair and makeup, which I love. But I said, let me incorporate some
Yeah,
entertainment into it as well, too, because there's actors out here that have projects that they need to get out. And why not include that into your platform? Make it like a, how can I say, like a home magazine, like a home entertainment magazine where everyone gets a little bit of everything. So that's kind of how Style by Steve
yeah,
started. And I started right after high school. I started very, very young. I'm 29 now. So to
Yeah,
see the progress from where I started then to where I'm at now to almost 400 shows, 400 interviews is just
that's
incredible. And
amazing. Yeah,
yes, that's kind of how I started right after high school. And it was so random. Like, I'm like, what am I going to name it? Because at first it was just going to be weekly topics. But I said,
you were
no, that's
right.
so simple. Mm, let's go with Style by Stevie because I love fashion. I love beauty. I love home decor. I love entertainment. And people love all of these things. So why not create it into a platform where everybody can get everything? So, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and it's a memorable
Yeah.
name. Um, let's see, another one I would say, what is it in life that inspires you?
I would have to say my mom. My mom keeps me going. She's a Libra, I'm a Scorpio. And that passion that we have in both zodiac signs, she's the reason why I keep going. Family is the reason why I keep going. And more importantly, God, faith. We've lost so many people. So I've always remembered to, I've
Yes.
been through so much sadness in my life, so much in my life, but this is what brings me joy. Style is what brings me joy, and making people happy is what brings me joy because we all need it in times of uncertainty. So if I can, get on Instagram and do a live interview somebody like your guest today, um, it's what makes people happy. Seeing these conversations that are positive. So if I can be an influence and a bright light, a beacon of light to somebody in a world of disarray, I know I've done my job. So that's what makes me.
That's amazing. Yeah, and I love the aspect of like your faith being part of that as well, because that really is such an important thing, and especially in a world that can seem so uncertain and scary. It was actually something I was going to say. I kind of forgot to touch on it when you asked about like the advice that I got that resonated with me most. One of the things that resonated with me most that I always try and tell people in the acting world is don't be afraid. Don't be afraid to take the challenges that come ahead of you. And if you look in the Bible, the phrase that is repeated the most is don't be afraid. And it's like, it's a big, scary world, but if you can face it with courage and passion, you can get through it.
Absolutely.
Oh,
Leap,
yeah,
leap,
yeah,
take that leap. It may be uncomfortable. I had to start over. Trust me, and I'm still having to start over in certain aspects of my life, but just leap, just do it. It might be for the better. And basically, each year, each new year that we start over, I said this last week before we went on the holiday break. I said, you're basically pressing the reset button. And sometimes you have to restart over. You have to hit that button for reset and be like, okay, it's time for a fresh change, a fresh start. So it's not.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, let's see. Another one I would ask is in your own show or in your own career altogether, what is a moment that you have been that has filled you with the most pride?
A moment that's filled me with the most pride. Um, wow. I would have to say going from season to season effortlessly, excuse me, because it's been challenging. I'm not gonna lie, it's been challenging. There were times where I
Oh
just
yeah,
wanted to give up, but I just kept going, and it's through the influences of the viewers, the supporters, and my circle that I have behind you. That's why I asked you that question about having a solid support circle because that is very pivotal and important to help you keep going. People who will
absolutely.
lift you up when you're down. And I want to thank Alan Yankee and K Tooks, Kenneth, all of them who have been behind me 100%. My girlfriend Felicia, I just seen her here, who I call on the phone and text me. I'm just like, girl, I can't do it. So she always pushes me and encourages me, like, sis, you got this. Those are the people that you need within your corner that will back you 100%. So at
Yeah,
some point in my life where I just wanted to give up, I would have to say season 13, season 2. I know because I had to take breaks mentally. It becomes exhausting taking in so much,
yeah,
overwhelming. So I've learned now to not let things stress me out as much. and just take lots of self-care and well-needed breaks if I need to. Because doing this mentally can sometimes be draining. You have to make sure the number one is okay first.
Yeah, absolutely. Great answer. Yeah, like I think it's not as easy for people to see because most of the stuff that we do as entertainers, they see the happiest aspects or the most fun or us giving a performance or anything like that. And so it's not always as out in the air how stressful it can be and how much of an emotional toll that can take on
Yes.
you. Um,
Yes,
oh, go
I was
ahead.
about to say, like doing this platform because I do it 5 days a week, Monday through Friday, and everybody's like, she's so consistent with it. You put your heart, your all into it. Yes, this is my baby. Like I literally birthed Style by Stevie from the beginning back in 2016, 2017, right after high school. And I didn't have no idea what I was doing. I started off very young. I was cocky and arrogant, and I figured I had it all. Like, no, you don't. Humble yourself. I had to learn
Right.
to humble myself along the way. And with change comes growth. And people are seeing that growth and elevation because I had to do a lot of, I had to give myself what I call like a self makeover, not aesthetically, but
Yeah.
inside, internally, make sure that I was mentally there. That going into this business, you make sure that you're mentally there because it's not fair.
Yeah. Yeah, it really. I've said this before to somebody where it's like you really have to have a thick skin because the challenges can sometimes feel so insurmountable, and so much of yourself goes into it that when you hit those hurdles, it can hit you so much harder than anything else.
Absolutely.
Um, yeah. All right. Another question I would ask is when you got to those moments of realizing you had to reevaluate and find an inner peace, what are things that you did that helped you find those emotional grounds of peace?
I would talk to my mom, and my mom, she would always tell me, talk to God about it, because I grew up, in the South, Christian and everything, and we're very faith based. And my mom, she taught me to always put your best in everything that you do. Keep going, talk to God about it, talk to your grandmother. My grandmother would always give me an encouraging word. Go to your elders, they have the best gems. Start there, the ones who have been there and experienced things in life. And
Yeah.
talk to your grandmother about it, talk to God about it. And I would talk to my mom, and she would just keep me encouraged each and every day. And then the support of family, having family around me, and friends, like my friend Felicia, who I've mentioned. It's been my friend a very long time. We went to school together. And even afterwards, when she knew that I was starting this platform, she would give me an encouraging word because I would get discouraged along the way. Like, oh my God, I don't think this platform is ever going to make it. But to see the response from people, the massive response from people is just like, wow. People are commenting. They're in the positivity. I've had to block a few trolls, but other than that,
Right.
it's been a positive experience. And the response, I would go and tell my mom, like, look at the comments, look at the feedback, look at the response. Even some of the guests that I've interviewed were saying, like, wow, this is an amazing platform. And you're doing it to
Yeah.
help out other actors. And I am. I want everybody to have a star, and I want that star to shine so bright.
Yeah. That's amazing. And so generous as well. That is awesome. That's a great answer.
Yes, yes, yes. And it hasn't been easy. The road to get to this point of Style by Stevie hasn't been easy. It's been some obstacles I've had to climb over. I've had to climb mountains. I've had to do everything to get to this point of where I'm at right now. And I'm so happy. This is the happiest I've ever been to see where it's at.
Oh, awesome. That's amazing. Yeah, and it's funny because you say like you started straight out of high school, and it's like I think a lot of people at such a young age always have that attitude of the world is at my
Right.
fingertips. And it's as you grow up and as you go through so many obstacles, you start to realize the world can be pretty hard and not all of it's quite at your fingertips. So as you get older, you start getting that defeatist sort of attitude because you're like, all these things that I thought I was going to accomplish by the time I was 22 didn't happen. And it's like, I think as you get older, one of the best things that you can do is to remind yourself or find people who help you remember you got as far as you did because you were able to get over the obstacles that hit you before in life. And it's like, just because you've hit more obstacles doesn't mean that it's time to throw in the towel. It just means that you got to remember how strong you are, how much you've been through already, and just dust off your shoulders and get up and go again. That's awesome that it's working out so
Thank you.
well.
Thank you so much. All right, fashion dolls. Do we have any questions for myself or Terry here? This was such a great conversation, and I hope you guys are taking bits and pieces and nuggets to remember through going through life as well too. And I've learned also, Terry said it in the mid part of this interview, and that is you're going to get a lot of no's in this business and
Yeah.
acting entertainment field. You're going to get a lot of no's, but the best thing is to keep
Mm.
going, keep pushing. And I always talk about this TED Talk because I was watching an episode of TED Talk, and it was someone that was going in for I think a pharma tech company, a pharmaceutical company, and the man
Yeah.
was presenting
Yeah.
a pitch. Said, they told him no, and it meant no, not right now. Some no means no, not right now, and then you have some just plain out no. Come back again, try a little harder, push harder. So it's two different
Yeah.
types of no's
Yeah.
that you can get. Don't, be so quick. And I used to be so quick to jump and say, well, no, they don't like me and things like that. Or
Right.
no, it just meant no, not right now. And we have a question
Yeah.
for you from Beefy. She wants to know, are you coming out with any music?
I am working on music. It'll probably be a bit of time before it's out. Um, but as I grew up, before I even got into acting, I had a bit of a musical career in my younger days, and we went really far with it. We were very successful with it, but life kind of happened. The band broke up, and it broke up in a way where at first I kind of stopped altogether because it was kind of like what I was saying before is sometimes you can hit those hurdles and they hit you so hard that you're like, why get up when there's another hurdle right there? But then at some point, I just sort of remembered I love this too much to just sort of let it go. And so I had to get back up. But I started writing music again recently. I've got a good number of songs that are written, but it's sort of in the refining stage of the recording process where it's, balancing everything and making sure it sounds right.
And we got another question from you from ETF. She wants to know, Terry, we first met on PD. Do you recommend first time actors to try background acting?
Hi, Wendy. I would say yes. But I would say don't look at it as a platform to begin an acting career as much as it gives you insight on how film works. It gives you insight on how the process works behind the cameras. So it's very rarely that going into background would be something that turns into like a huge acting career. You do hear of that happening, but that part's very rare. But if you go into it, you can learn so much from just the PAs that you work with, or anybody behind the scenes, or depending on the cast. Sometimes they'll talk with you about things, especially especially if they know that you're interested in acting. Most of the time, actors really want to share with actors because an acting is very much a figure it out
Mm.
as you go sort of business. So it's like most of the time when somebody's a little higher up, if they have the opportunity to give you some advice on what you can do and to help build yourself up, they're so happy to do it. So I would say absolutely yes, as far as the experience.
And Dante is also an actor, Dante Famber, who again I've interviewed. He says, learn from the background work, learn the terminology. Exactly. And you
Yeah,
have to start
yeah,
somewhere. Start
exactly.
somewhere going into this business and whether it's being an extra or doing background work.
Right. Yeah, because honestly, I mean, when you do that, because I've done background, and also I forget if I did this. Hi, Wendy. When you are doing background, you'll see different groups of people. There are some people who are there because, they thought it would be fun just to be there, but they don't really have any aspirations to go further. But then you also have groups who are actors are people who have done other things, and they might converse with you about it, but you'll also notice those same people are watching how everybody works behind the scenes. They kind of watch how everybody interacts with each other and the do's and don'ts of how you behave. And as Dante said, learning the terminology.
Wendy wants to know, well, who are your greatest acting influences?
Ooh, my greatest acting influences. That's actually that's actually a long list for me. The first one would probably be Harrison Ford. Harrison Ford was somebody where when I saw him as Indiana
Mm-hmm.
Jones, my dad has a strong physical resemblance to Harrison Ford and his Indiana Jones character. So growing up, I kind of related the two to each other. And so it kind of caused me to really like him early on. But then I saw people like Kurt Russell, who were just huge inspirations to me. But then Jim Carrey came along and just changed my entire sense of humor. Robin Williams was
So,
another. Oh, yes. Yeah. He's somebody who I wish I would have had the opportunity to meet because there was just something so warm and welcoming about him, like not just when you'd see a live performance or anything like that, but just how he interacted on screen. It just felt so beautiful and alive. It's sad that we won't get to see more of that, but what he left us with was so
and
fantastic.
we got a couple questions. I've seen them. Beefy wants to know, how important is it to get an agent or manager? And Wendy wants to know, what are your strengths and weaknesses?
Ooh, how important it is to get an agent or manager, I would say, especially depends on where you are in your acting career, because it's not something that you immediately need to have. You can actually get out into the acting world and you can find stuff to work on all on your own. But there's a certain point where you might hit a plateau of doors that you seem to be able to get through. And a lot of that is because agents and managers are the ones who kind of hold the keys to those doors that kind of open up other avenues for you. So it's one of those things where it wouldn't hurt to find an agent when you start at all. But as time goes on, you definitely will need them. Um, and then as for my strengths and weaknesses, I would say my strength would just be how much I enjoy taking part in film in general. It's something I love doing. I love every aspect of it. The storytelling, the performance, getting to show other people and seeing how they react. Like I have so much joy from it that I feel like it affects every aspect of what I do within it. And I would say my biggest weakness is probably sometimes I'm almost a little too critical of myself to where most of the time when I see a performance of my own, I can't entirely
Right.
just watch it because the whole time I'm just
Every
like, I
little
could have
thing.
done
I'm
that.
I'm the same way.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like I can't just detach myself and just sort of enjoy it. I would say that would probably be the greatest weakness.
Okay, we got two questions. Well, we got a couple questions. Wow, they're coming in. Um, Two for me. Well, one for us together from Wendy. I'm gonna start with that one. And let's see. Um, Wendy wants to know, how do you react to negative reviews on performances?
Uh, whew. Negative reviews on performance, it really depends because I think there are times where it's like, you did what you could. Um, and when you know you did what you could and you might get a bad review, then it's something to where it's like, well, why why did
Right.
you say that? Is it something about this or that? And it can cause you to go down this whole rabbit hole of self-doubt. But then at the same time, I think you can also take a bad review and look at it and say, that is just that person's opinion on my performance, especially if I feel like I did a good job. it doesn't mean necessarily I did bad. It just means whatever that person was looking for, they didn't find it in me. Um, but at the same time, a third aspect where you can look at it, you can also take some of the things that they say, and if you do agree with them, like if they do have a legitimate critique where they're saying, you know, I wish I had seen this and I didn't, then you can take that and say, all right, how do I apply that to my characters? And how did I miss that with this character? So I would say you can do all of those things, but at the same time, never take it to heart in a way that lets it eat away at how you view your own performance. No, take it as a learning critique, but not something that can break you down.
Absolutely. Okay, Wendy, my response to it is how do I deal with negative reviews after performance? Because I've started a horror film. I've only did one film, and that's that horror film, The Assistant. Two, you guys can check
Oh no,
it is out right now on YouTube. Shout outs to Alex Jonte Productions. And I played a college professor.
awesome.
So for this role, he wanted me to have short hair. As you guys can see, I'm wearing long hair today. I always have long hair, everything. So he said, I didn't want you to have long hair for a reason because I didn't want you to look like one of the college students. I wanted you to look like a college professor. So he would rather have me short hair. And it came in perfectly. So I stepped out of my comfort zone. I went in, nailed the table read. It was absolutely amazing. No acting experience at all. And everybody was just like, oh my God, wow. They were focused in as I was reading the part for this character. And I'm just like, what's so important
That's
about
awesome.
that? I'm not that alluring. So I went in and I
Yeah.
nailed it and it turned out perfectly. But the funny part is, here's the behind the scenes. And a lot of actors, we have a lot of stuff that goes on behind the scenes on set. Everybody kept
Right.
mixing each other's parts over. So this person would read this person's part and this person would read this person's part. No, that's not your line. That's my line. It was funny. It was hilarious. It was hysterical. So
Yeah.
how do I respond to negative reviews? I don't feed into it. I have adapted what's called the Beyonce mentality. Notice how Beyonce, whenever somebody says anything about her online, she does not respond to it. She does not respond to it. She does
Yeah.
not pay attention to it. Whether it's a critique on one of her albums or anything, good or bad, she does not pay attention to it. She stays focused on her craft. And that's what I call the Beyonce mentality. I've adapted that. And I haven't really had any negativity so far because I bring joy to people. The responses have been positive and love, but I block negativity. I block the trolls. I block and I keep moving. Don't respond
Yeah.
because once you respond, shout outs to my fraternal Island Yankee, he's here. You give them that energy, you give them that power. And once you give them that little bit of power, they've won. Boom, they've got you. So for me,
Yeah.
I don't respond at all. I just block and move on. And I go through and I check the comments on the talk show page. Thank you guys for that 1K. Style by Stevie is now 1.4K. So thank you guys for your love and unconditional support. And I do go back and read the comments, and they are positive. Like it's nothing but positivity. People love the fashion. They love the interviews. They love everything because I'm consistent, and people like consistency, and they like things that bring them joy because again, we've been living in dark times. We've been inside the house and literally not able to go anywhere. And Wendy, she also asked me what is my long-term goal. My long-term goal would be to have this platform, Style by Stevie, on national television. And I would like to produce my own company where actors can come on and produce their projects or whatever it is that they're working on. And it'll be under the umbrella of the Style by Stevie brand. So that would be one of my long-term goals. And of course, I would dip and dabble in the fashion world or two. So clothing design maybe, something in the beauty arena as well too, because I love hair and makeup. I'm a hair and makeup girl, and I'm all about promoting healthy skin, self-care, and taking care of yourself. So it would be something in that. That would be another long-term goal of mine because I always preach how people we have to take care of ourselves. In times of uncertainty, our mental health is very, very important. So we have to make
Yeah.
sure that we are taking
Yeah.
care of ourselves. So those will be a couple of my long-term goals.
Nice. Yeah. Yeah, I would say definitely I agree on what you said about like with the negative sort of feedback that you can get, one of the best things that you can do is just not interact. Because they're like, I thankfully myself, I've never really had to deal with that too much. But I've had one occasion where it was somebody where I read through it, and it was just a post. It was a premiere I was at. It was a picture of me and my partner at the premiere of a film I had taken part of. It was something I was very proud to have been part of. And suddenly I got a comment at one point of somebody just being incredibly negative and saying I shouldn't be proud of it. And it all, for whatever reason, was directed at one of my co-stars in the film. And it was a sort of thing where it's like, clearly you don't actually have any
Right.
involvement with the film, and it sounds like you've never actually seen it. Seems like you just have a personal problem with somebody else that I worked with, who honestly, that person was such a wonderful person. And so it's like, I didn't even bother with it. I just deleted the comment, blocked the person, and it's just like, why deal with somebody who's out there just to create negativity?
Oh, Wendy wants to know, and I just seen another question from Fifi. She wants to know, do you recommend improv classes? And Wendy wants to know if we could do a dream role. This is questions for both of us. She wants to know if you could do a dream role, what would your dream role be?
Okay. Yeah, I would say improv definitely is something that is good to have. Uh, it's actually funny how it started out for me because my brother had started training before I did, and he started training in improv. So he kind of filled me in on what some of that was. But then one day, I got the opportunity for a film role where an actor had dropped out of the lead position or one of the lead positions. And the director asked cast and crew, they were like, does anybody know an actor who can fill this on short-term notice? And the writer, thankfully, I had done a music video with him, and he had suddenly just been like, "Oh, I know a guy." And so he referenced me, and it got me the part. But during the conversation, when the director called me, he was like, "So how comfortable do you feel with improv?" And in that moment, I said, "I am 100% comfortable with improv. Absolutely." And then once I got off the phone call, I was like, "Oh my gosh." And then I called my brother. I was like, "Hey, I just told somebody I was really comfortable with this. I need you to tell me the ins and outs of it." And he did, and kind of reassured me. He's like, "Most of the way that you talk is improv. Is like you kind of have the gist of it already." And I was like, "Awesome." But he gave me the ins and outs, and thankfully the film went really well. Um, but then from that point, I decided I want to be able to honestly answer that as I'm 100% confident in my improv abilities. So from that point, I went to Second City and started training for improv. And it started out as something where I was like, I just want this to be part of my
Right.
acting, like the repertoire I can pick from. But then at some point, I was like, I love this so much. It is so fun. So it became something I did more. But then from that point on, it really entwined with my acting career way more than I thought it would. Because I started getting roles where they wanted somebody with improv abilities. I started having moments on set to where it was like, because I understood my character so much, I'd be inspired to do something. I would be able to do it, and it would make sense and be able to get into the project, which was satisfying. But at the same time, it also allows you to feel a bit more comfortable with your character and also yourself. Because improv isn't just a performance, it also kind of helps you feel comfortable with who you are as a person, and it helps you be more confident. So I would say improv is definitely something that I would suggest, especially if you want to act. It's definitely something I would suggest adding. And I afraid there was a second part
Yes.
of the question. I forget.
What would be your dream role if you could do a role?
Ooh, if I could do a dream role, it would be like a superhero. Like there's a version of the Flash with red hair that kind of matches mine. I'm, Wally West is the character's name. It's like if they ever did that, I would lose my mind if I got that role. just because I've always loved the Flash. But that would just be one of those things where if I ever got something like that, I'd just be like a kid in a candy store where I'm like, I'm wearing a superhero costume.
Okay. Mine's would be I love Audrey Hepburn. So if they said, okay, we would like to do a remake of Breakfast at Tiffany's, Holly Golightly, that would be mine. It
Yeah,
would be perfect. The black gloves, the cup staring outside the window, like everything. That would totally be me. Or it would be
yeah,
Meryl Streep's character with Anne Hathaway in The Devil Wears Prada. Like that would be out of my
yes.
element because I would have to cut my hair again, and she was just this take charge. But I'm like, I'm not like that in real life. In some aspects, and Island Yankee would argue. But yes, I kind of
Oh
do
man,
have that attitude in real life when it comes to business. That's serious, and everybody needs to have that. But I definitely would like to do those two. Audrey Hepburn's Breakfast at Tiffany's, Holly Golightly, and maybe Meryl Streep's The Devil Wears Prada if we were asked to do a remake of it. Maybe on Broadway, who knows?
nice. Yeah, excellent choices. Yeah, those would be a lot of fun. I'd even take those. uh, but yeah, it's funny how many times there's a kind of role where it's like this really is just invigorating for me, but it's not who you
Right,
are. Like I get like tough guys or jerks or bad guys, and it's like one of those things where I've even had a director I worked with more than once who's like, Terry, you're such a nice guy. I promise at some point I will give you a good guy role. It's just you're so good at the bad guy. And so it's one of those things where I was like, I actually like playing the bad guy because it's fun.
right, and it takes you out of your comfort zone to what people are used to seeing you as. 100.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like getting to test out those emotions that you don't near ever get to deal with otherwise. And so it's like, you have a villain who suddenly loses their mind and stuff like that. You get to have this big, huge moment where you're just going nuts. But then once they yell cut, it was like, well, that was fun.
Any last questions, Fashion Dolls? This was such a great conversation and eye-opening. It was
Absolutely.
very informative. So we hope you guys took some notes and took some gems as well along the way through this interview also. This was a great conversation.
Yes, thank you.
Oh, you love Audrey? Yes, I love Audrey Hepburn. I love Audrey Hepburn. Now I have this big picture of Marilyn Monroe over my vanity area where I get my hair and makeup done. It's beautiful. I have two pictures of her actually. So I love Audrey Hepburn. I have to get one of Audrey as well too. So I love Breakfast at Tiffany's. That's one of my favorite movies. So I could definitely see myself playing
Nice.
that character.
Yeah, she absolutely is a screen legend. Amazing actor.
Any last questions, Fashion Dolls? Any last minute comments? My last question for you, Terry, is what would you go back in time and tell your younger self? Because we talked about that when you asked me questions when we did the Turn the Table segment. If you could go back in time
Yeah,
and tell your younger self something, what would you tell your younger self?
I would tell myself it'll be okay.
Mm,
Because at some point I realized so much of my life was consumed with fear of whether I could accomplish this to this level or whether I could even do this at all. And I became so overwhelmed by those sorts of thoughts that not only did it affect how I viewed myself and viewed what I did, but it became like a defeatist mentality. And so over time, of course, learning that, there's really no reason to be afraid of your own dreams. And as long as you're doing everything that you can to make it happen, you should be satisfied with what a great job you are doing to accomplish your dreams. So if I would tell myself anything in the past, it would be, it's going to be okay.
I love that. And we've got one last question for you before we let you go. It is from my fraternal Island Yankee. He wants to know if you could be a comic character, do you want to be the non-traditional hero or the smart villain? Ooh, that's a good one.
Ooh, that's actually an awesome question. I, I actually have a comic book collection. My son got me a box for Christmas to hold my comics. So it was one of those things where I'm actually going to be going through my comics. God, I would have to say, I would have to say the hero. Because as much as I love playing a villain and getting to do those villainous aspects and having like the mustache twisting moments of like, I've got you now, the thing that like Superman is my favorite comic book character, and it's not because he's the strongest or the fastest or anything like that. It's because his idea was not to defeat the enemy. It was always to inspire people to be the best versions of themselves. And so I would want to play somebody who's more inspiring or be somebody who's more inspiring for good, just because I think there's so much more satisfaction to making somebody believe that there is so much more good in this world and there's a reason to fight for it. I would get so much more satisfaction from that than getting to play like the evil sort of characteristics of like, haha, I've got you, Superman.
And Timothy wants to know who is your favorite Superman hero, and Dante Cambro says I would love to work with Terry.
Oh, awesome. Thank you, Dante. Um, my favorite Superman actor
Oh,
is Christopher Reeve.
mm,
He just embodied it so well. And don't get me wrong, I've actually loved every person who's played Superman like that I can think of. I saw George Reeves as a kid. Like I saw the black and white shows. I thought he was great. You know, I thought Dean Cain did a great job. He's one who doesn't get talked about at all. Brandon Ruff did a great job. You know, I love Henry Cavill's part, but when Christopher Reeve portrayed
yeah.
Superman, he understood not only how Superman worked, but he also understood Clark Kent on this whole other level to where he realized it was a full-on disguise. And a lot of people say, like, I don't get how the Clark Kent thing works. He puts on glasses and nobody recognizes him. It's not just that. He makes Clark Kent such a person to where you would never believe he was Superman, even if you noticed the resemblance. You might just be like, hey, Clark, you know, you look a lot like Superman. And you're like, well, golly gee, thanks. And they'd be like, okay, no way it's him. Uh, but it was funny because his performance of Superman was this strong, stoic character who was all about doing the right thing. And Clark Kent was about doing the right thing, but he was so bumbling and silly and in ways that other characters just don't notice. That it's like you have to love him, but it's also like you have to love the contrast of what he is to Superman. So it's like not only did he get the two, but he gave an outstanding performance of really two different characters.
Oh yeah. The best
Yeah.
of both worlds, literally. All
Yeah.
right, fashion dolls, any last minute questions, any thoughts before we conclude this interview? This was such a great conversation, Terry. I had a great time chatting with
Yes.
you.
Same here. Absolutely. It was a pleasure. And thank you so much for having me. I've had such a great time.
Let me see last minute comments. Great interviews. Thank you, Whitney. Thank you. Thank you so much, Wendy. I appreciate it. I appreciate all of you guys for tuning in. Tomorrow, joining me, we have actor and model Brandon. He will be joining me, so make sure you guys tune in tomorrow. Best description I ever heard. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, fashion dolls. Let everyone know where they can follow you.
Uh, you can follow me on Facebook under Terry King, or you can find me on Instagram under Terry Richard King, which is my full name. You can also find me on IMDb under Terry King.
All right, fashion dolls. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Joining me tomorrow, we have, I said Brandon. I made a mistake, y'all. Don't kill me. Adam Bryant will be joining me tomorrow. Model actor Adam Bryant will be joining me tomorrow. So make sure you guys tune in. These are our last two shows for the year of 2022. And Style by Stevie season 17 will begin January 2nd. So mark your calendars. The lineup will go out sometime later this week. So make sure you guys stay tuned for that. And you guys have a blessed and safe Happy New Year. We will see you guys tomorrow with the last episode of this year. And the new season begins January 2nd. So make sure you guys tune in. New guests, new look, new everything. We love you all and you guys be safe.
Thank you so
You
much. Have a great
too.
day.